Good evening.
Good evening, Ken and Dave.
And Dave. It's good to see everybody. Good evening, Ken and Dave. Hey, so it's good to
That
see
didn't come
everyone.
out right. What can I say?
Dave's not here.
Dave's not here. It's good to see everyone. I want to welcome everyone to episode 349 of Line Upon Line. Tonight's topic is the meaning of the fifth commandment of God and honoring our forebearers, which does not seem real popular right now in the commie pinko world. So, if Dr. Ricks, if you would start us out, that would be.
Okay. We're going to start you with a few Bible groaners. Bible groaners. Bible groaners. Okay, the first one. Who was the greatest comedian in the Bible? He was Samson. He brought the house down. Okay. The next Bible groaner is who is the greatest babysitter in the Bible? The greatest babysitter in the Bible is David. He rocked Goliath to sleep. And why didn't they play cards on the ark? Because Noah was standing on the deck. Okay. Now, here's my joke du jour. This is a special one called Magic Beer. You ready for it? There's this nice little restaurant bar. It's on and have a big rooftops. People can drink and eat outdoors. So like we have a Buffalo Wild Wings like that. It's all a big thing on top with umbrellas. And so this guy sits down at a table and he sees another guy with dark glasses and he says, this magic beer is wonderful. He chug-a-lugs some magic beer. And he says, oh, watch this. After drinking my magic beer, he runs over to the ledge. He jumps off the ledge. He opens his arms and he flies all around like Peter Pan around things, and he lands. He says, wow. The guy said, that's magic beer. Yes, I want some. So the guy grabs some magic beer. He chug-a-lugs. Feels good. He goes over to the ledge. He jumps off. Splat. The bartender walks over to the guy with the dark rimmed glass. He says, you're real nasty when you're drunk, Superman. Ken got it. I think Dave got it too. Well, maybe he was Clark Kent Superman. But anyway. But, there are people dumb enough. They see other people doing stupid stuff, and guess what? They do it too. No, I guess it isn't funny. People doing stupid stuff isn't funny.
Ken, you saw my new Facebook? I'm trying to do that just for church members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see you invite.
Oh, I thought I did. I will. Talking about stupid stuff, when you see my banner picture, you're going to yep, that's stupid stuff. So I document my stupidity.
Stuff, right?
I document my stupidity.
Oh, well, the fifth commandment. We believe the fifth commandment serves as a bridge. As you probably know, and Christ said this and Moses as well, that the first four commandments tell you how to love God with all your heart, and the last six tell you how to love your fellow man with all your heart. So the fifth commandment is kind of a bridge between the two. The fifth commandment says honor your parents, and by implication your grandparents and great-grandparents also. And it's a connection between the two. And we now live in a world where at least higher education and other things are teaching the young people not to honor their parents. And we're gonna jump one step further, or their forefathers, because I believe it all fits in the same paradigm, or their forefathers. First of all, we all probably know the starting block of communities is the family. That's when young people first learn how to behave, because no kid is born discipline, with good behavior. What's the first thing you learn when you're 2 years old? No. And I want it. It's mine. Take it from your little sister or something.
My son learned you don't slap grandma at 2 years old.
He learned not to slap grandmother?
Yeah.
What happened?
She was trying to get a diaper on him. He started slapping her hands because he didn't want to get dressed. So first time I ever swatted him, I swatted him, and he looked at me, and then he cried because it broke his heart. It didn't hurt him. So then I got in my car and drove a couple hours away and sat 30 minutes away.
You know, I've heard people say this. I think my grandmother said this more times than she should have. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. I never, ever believed it. But maybe it's possible, right?
I housebroke him in a day. He was a great kid.
Housebroke?
Yeah. I was tired. I would take him into the bathroom, take his diaper off, and I get the water nice and warm in the shower and get him upside down and rinse him off. And then my sister came in and was upset about me doing that. And I said, we got to fix this. So it took me one day. He'd actually go to the door, get his own leash, and wait.
You're talking about your dog or
my kid? You'll see him tomorrow on Zoom.
Also, we believe that children feel more secure with parental guidelines. I mean, parents who teach their kids are good for their kids. And it's good for kids to not hassle their parents, but to respect them. And I'm just going to ask you a question, and see, Ken, if you've noticed this. Every now and then, I don't watch as much news as I probably could because it's depressing, but you'll see some riot out somewhere like Seattle and New York, and a bunch of thugs, and I guess an Antifa warriors, that's probably what they are, anarchists, get right in the front of the police and they taunt them. And they curse the police and say, like they want the police to overreact while they're videotaping. I mean, you can tell that's what they want. And that lack of disrespect. Lack of respect. Doesn't that bother you?
Oh, of course. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a video going around where this kid, he was one of these Antifa brats. He had the mask on and everything, and he was he wasn't he was rioting with these people and causing trouble and throwing bottles or whatever. And this woman comes out of nowhere and smacks him upside the head and just kept beating him, told him to get home. It was his mother. Mama come to get her boy. And here's this big, tall Antifa kid getting his butt handed to him by his mama.
Good.
How do you go back to the Antifa meeting after that? What are you going to
That's exactly how my mother would have been.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. You look on YouTube, you will find it, and it is a beautiful.
And I think what's worse, though this is not our topic, but political leaders like the mayor of Seattle and Minneapolis and I guess Portland are actually encouraging the young little anarchist. And I'm thinking that's terrible.
Yeah, Joe Biden said the mayor of Arizona.
Yeah, I heard that.
Joe Biden said he wants the mayor of Arizona to do what?
He was talking to, I think, the governor of Arizona, and he's called Arizona a city.
Yeah. That man is only dimly aware of his own.
They're gonna put him. Their goal is to put him in office and kill him off.
Oh yeah, I guarantee you, if he wins within about 2 years, because then they can run for 2 more terms, the VP and their group will have him retire one way or the other. And he'll probably gladly go along. Well, what am I supposed to do now? Sign this retirement paper. You're not cognitively up to it. Anyway, who knows? I tell you, it's scary. If Biden wins, America declines significantly. That's the minimum. It could even be worse than that. And respect for parents and stuff, all those things I believe will take the wrong direction. Let's look at our first scripture.
Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. And then it says, you shall not murder.
I just left that on there to show you it's connecting to the other commandments. But you can see the commandments are rated in importance. Most important was, God is number one in your life. It shows you honoring your parents is right up there. It's before murder. That's how important it is.
I'm wondering if it was originally written all in one. Honor your father and your mother. Don't kill them.
Okay.
Send your emails right today.
But think about it, how that went.
Funny. I know we might have mentioned this before, but there was a politician in, I think it's Michigan. I think he's been in the state legislature for many years. His daughter was proud of him. She went to college. After 2 years of college, she now says he's a white supremacist and other negative things. And she's on Twitter and other places saying, don't vote for my dad. She turned against her dad thanks to higher education.
Yeah, I would turn her right out of my will. But the things I tell my kids, because I don't go in there and do religion. I do have them promise loyalty to their God, their country, their family, and me. But I don't know, it is what it is. But I tell them, if your parents were Bonnie and Clyde, that doesn't mean you have to be a gangster. You can turn all that around. You're the window everybody looks through to see your parents. So if your parents are terrible people, you're a person, and nobody will ever know.
That's nice.
Yeah, and parents are your first teacher. Yeah, we probably said this more than one time too. Since people are free moral agents, there are people who have great parents and they turn out to be criminals and drug addicts. And there are people who have bad parents and they turn out well. So, the kid can make decisions. Like when you get to be 14, 15, 16, and 17, you can look at the bad traits of your parents and say, I don't want to do that. But I would still argue you should respect your parents regardless of any weaknesses they have. And, and you surely have learned something good from your parents. Wouldn't you agree? Even if they have weaknesses and problems?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I look at that also as bring honor upon them. Don't just honor what they want you to do or whatever, but be a person where they look at you, they think, man, he must come from the best family. He must come from the best people.
And by the way, these commandments we believe are universal. It's not just something Moses stuck on Israel. I know people say that. Let's go to our next scripture. It just proves the commandments were there back in very ancient times before the Old Testament was written.
And I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of heaven. I will give to you your descendants all these lands, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws.
And what we want to say is dishonoring the fathers of our country harms the younger generation. By the way, the Bible uses the term father and grandfather, and I think sometimes even great-grandfather interchangeably, because it'll confuse you sometimes. You think, wait a minute, Abraham's talking really about his grandson, and but now that I'm a grandfather, hopefully not too soon to be a great-grandfather, but I think I understand it. It's like, don't you think of so you all don't have grandkids yet, but you will pretty soon. When you have grandkids, you'll think of them as twice yours.
I got grandkids.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
As young as you are? As young as you look?
Yeah, I got grandkids.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah, they don't like me.
I don't believe that. I almost think I love my grandkids more than my own kids.
What?
And I know that sounds crazy, but I had to put up with my own kids more than I have to put up with the grandkids. So you love them even more. Someday, well, never mind. I think you'll understand that someday. But we could probably skip Genesis 31:40. It just shows that he considers his granddaughters his daughters, but there are more than one place in the Bible where that's true. And what I'm getting is that I believe that many of our ancestors lived in poverty, hard times, and we're the benefactors of the foundation and the suffering that they went through. We're blessed to be in all things said and done. I know Switzerland's got a lot going for it too, but all things said and done, we're probably in the most prosperous, normally except for this COVID times, free country in the world, and probably with the greatest potential upside. You can go from a regular working Joe to a guy making big bucks. A lot of people have done it. I mean, the odds are better in this country probably than anywhere in the world. And we benefit from the generations that went before us, building this great economy and suffering whatever they suffered. And we should honor and respect their suffering in the past. Does that make sense?
We should respect. We really can't even understand. I mean, we can read the history, but what they went through. The men who formed our country did it with no shoes on. The shoes back then were one size fits all. So if you had really big feet, you may not have shoes, or if you're a smaller guy, your shoes would be, and there wasn't a right or a left either. It was just something your foot went into. These guys fought, they lost their toes, and they got frostbit and everything else, and they did not break, they did not surrender.
Yeah, and America was the first country to make a move against slavery. Unknown by most people, the northern states, because they're part of the British Empire. Slavery was big in the British Empire. And the French Empire, the Spanish, slavery was everywhere. America just kind of came along on the end of it. But they got out of, and by the way, the 3/5, Frederick Douglass said this, but it's worth repeating it. He realized the 3/5 Amendment was to stop this, because the slave states wanted to count their total population for revenues. It was so the free states could outvote the slave states and eventually vote out slavery. Now that's what John Adams and Quincy Adams and Lincoln thought would happen. Lincoln actually had a very good bill in Congress to outlaw slavery. Anyway, but I realized that they never could get it through Congress and bad things happened, that. But the point I'm getting at is Americans built the greatest nation in the world, and many of them built farms and plantations all across the frontier, and we benefit from it and probably don't realize that they really worked hard and suffered a lot.
In the 1960s, disability was because somebody had a stroke or heart attack. That was the number 1 and 2 complaints when they applied for disability. Today, it's backache. My back hurts. Not the same people.
And you know why they do the back thing? Because it's hard to disprove. It's subjective. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are some people with broken backs. I realize that you can x-ray and see the spinal cord's broken, but you can have a sore back and nobody can know whether you're lying or not, right?
The way we are is you had a sore back, nobody cares. Get done what needs to get done.
And, well, all I'm saying is people crossed the frontier, built farms and ranches and plantations and everything else to create the greatest economy in the world. By the way, we often don't give agriculture the credit it deserves. Before, both in Britain started, but America came along after the Civil War and pumped things up afterwards. But before the Industrial Revolution could really build, you have to first have enough food. So agriculture has to get strong enough. I believe by around 1900, I think like a little over a quarter of the people could produce enough food for the rest of the country and to export some. So the rest of the public could get into manufacturing and shops and all kinds of other stuff. It's such, I think less than 3% of the public produces all the food that Americans eat. Now there are people that pack it and ship it and grocers that sell it, but still, you see how agriculture is like the base, and that base was put down by our ancestors digging in the dirt and working hard. And we probably don't give credit to their hard work and suffering.
We're friends with one of the biggest farmers in the area, and he loves what he does. He loves what he does. He came in one day and told me, he says, that people tell me I'm royalty in this town. He says, I work pretty hard for being royalty. And the smell coming off of him, he was definitely just came off the farm. And these good people, good-hearted people, and they work hard. And the family has multiple farms, and every one of them are really just, I don't know all of them, but everyone that I know are really good people, and they work from sun up to sun down.
You know that famous French philosopher de Tocqueville, he said of Americans, for the most part, work very, very hard and are well-disciplined and moral. That's what he said. And he said that's what made America great. And that probably to a great extent was true of our relatives. And well, all I'm saying is we stand on the back of people, many of whom were slaves, indentured servants, poor, and I mean this respectfully, but poor dirt farmers and other kind of farmers, ranchers, but they built the world's greatest economy and the freest country, and we have to honor them, even if they weren't perfect.
In World War II, when our men came home from the battlefield, they came back to the family business, and they went right to work. We didn't have this PTSD like we today. They get them home quickly to nothing. They don't come back to the family farm and they go, hey, it's 8 o'clock. Where are you? We've been out here since 5. That field ain't going to plow itself. You come back, you got stuff to do, and it's good for your mind to do that, to work.
One of the famous stories of World War II is the admiral in charge of the Japanese Navy. I think it's Yokohama, but I may get the name wrong. It's on the tip of my mind, but I didn't write it down, so I may get it. But he went to Harvard, and he was the military attaché. What was it again? Yamamoto. That's it. Yamamoto. Yeah. He went to Harvard and was military attaché in Washington, so he knew America a little bit. And the Japanese had to make the big decision to attack Russia to the east or America to the west. You could argue that they attacked Russia with the fury they attacked America. Russia may have collapsed and the Nazis and the fascists might have won the war. He said, let the sleeping giant sleep a little longer. He said, the Americans are strong, disciplined, proud, and a lot tougher than you think they are. And the funny thing is, the generals and the army people, they had seen Hollywood movies like the Hardy Boys. We would all laugh at this. And they looked at, by their standards, the way the Japanese live, by their standards, they looked at Hollywood movies and those Americans are soft. Be easy. And the proof of that, when they got to Guadalcanal, one of the first big offensive land operations of the Americans, fighting in the jungle, those country boys, well, Marines, but those country boys outfought the Japanese in the jungle. One of them was in my church. He's passed away now. They were a lot tougher than most of us. I doubt, and most were drafted. They couldn't do a draft like that today and get millions and millions of tough boys to fight in Guadalcanal today. Do you think they could?
There was different people today.
No.
30 years ago, I was fortunate. I was working for a carpet cleaning company, and they called me to a man's home to clean the carpet. And in one of his rooms, he had a hachimaki, which is a Japanese headband, and all kinds of stuff. And I said, "Where'd you get this?" He said, "I was a submarine pilot in World War II. And I was driving somewhere, and I saw a Japanese guy in a tree. And my driver drove and hit the tree, and he fell out, and I shot him." He says, "And then I took everything he had, because he had a little samurai sword, he had some coins in his pocket, and he had this thing." And I said, "I think that's everybody's name in his battalion, or signed that, or his platoon, or whatever, signed his hachimaki." He said, "Yeah, he hit the tree, and he came out, hit the ground, and I shot him the second he hit the ground." And I realized I was cleaning up. His wife had colon cancer. I was on my knees cleaning that. And I said, "You know what? I'm proud to do this for you." Great American.
Yeah. I'm not saying the Japanese didn't fight valiantly as well. That's a whole nother story. But I think they were shocked at the toughness of Americans. I think it shocked anybody. I think Hitler was shocked too by it as well. All I'm saying, the generation that we came from, and our grandparents and great-great-great-parents, in their own way, were humble and strong and hardworking. And probably we should honor them, even if many of them, and I mean this respectfully, didn't get educated and didn't get a lot of the good things that we have in this world. They were good, strong, and mostly Christian people, as best they understood the Bible.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Most of them, if not a high percentage of them, were affiliated with some kind of a church, and they had real education. They could count change back. That's what I'm doing now with my teenagers, is teaching them how to count change so they don't get ripped off. They don't know how to count change.
I hear a lot of young people can't even write a letter. We got a letter from one of our granddaughters. We were happy to get it, and we wrote it back. But we heard from some people, a lot of young kids they text where you don't have to spell, and you can, but they don't know how to write a letter.
They can't read cursive.
Isn't that a shame?
They can't read cursive.
That's a shame.
It's a secret code.
I was told that the education establishment was doing that intentionally, dumbing down the younger generation, not teaching them cursive. I've heard that.
They are. Well, I don't know about that specifically. I know they're not teaching it, but they are definitely dumbing them down so they can be.
Yeah. And if you go through the book of Proverbs, it says that parents should discipline their children, teaching them to respect them. By the way, I'm going to admit, when I was a kid, 11 and 12 and 13, occasionally I had some bad attitudes and had to be put in my place. I wasn't by no means the perfect example. And my older relatives would tell us, younger generation, they said, "You all are spoiled." When we were on the farm, then they told us all the things they had to do. They made their own ice cream. At one time, they had to make their own candy anyway. Stuff that, the only point we should respect the people that came before us. And honor them. And strong families are a real blessing, where the kids respect their parents and grandparents. Because if they respect their parents, they can respect their teachers, they can respect laws and stay out of trouble. And respect police. Doesn't it bother you that nobody respects the police anymore?
An awful lot of the young ones don't seem to. I don't know. I don't think it's a majority, but there's quite a large number that just don't.
When you walk in my school, I've got a giant custom painted Blue Lives Matter flag on my wall. It's probably 4 to 5 feet tall and 8 feet long.
You're going to get in trouble.
Take it down. That's what I'm telling them. Take it down.
I'm proud of you.
I'll send you a picture.
And we believe parents and grandparents provide a vital role for the next generation. Also, go ahead, Ken.
Well, if you think about it, someone brought this up about government's role and the father's role from the family, but the left, the part of the society, first they removed Christ from the home, from the family. Then they removed the father from the family. I mean, Satan's been trying to get rid of the father figure out of the family, first with Christ and God the Father, and then the actual fathers. That's what they've been doing, and that's what then what's left is a mess.
It's
I mean,
true.
there's strong mothers out there, but you got to have both parents to raise.
I've heard actually people say one parent is just as good as two. That is illogical. But they say it as if it's logical.
Well, when they get their paycheck, say $1 is just as good as 2.
Well, also there's a little more to it. Let's look at Ephesians 6:1-4.
All right. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And you, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord.
I would say fathers should remember to tell their kids that you love them, and hopefully at some point you're proud of them, regardless of what they accomplish. Now, they don't have to be a sports star, an academic star, or a star in drama. Just as your kids need to know they're loved and valued by the parents, and we parents should respect the kids, but make them respect you too. And so we're for good fatherhood, but definitely for fatherhood because it's needed. People need, like you said, can need the wisdom of the parents, and to all of us kids, even if your parents have problems, honor them for what the good things they do and learn lessons from the mistakes they make, saying, well, I won't make the same mistake. Which is a good thing, good way to look at it, right?
Well, if you think about it, what they've done is they've taken discipline, first biblical discipline, and then the father's discipline away from the family structure. What's left?
Yeah, we're going to get to what's left in a minute. But by the way, leftists have done this. LBJ said when he came up with, and FDR too, with the welfare state, they were hoping people wouldn't become dependent on it. I don't know if he really meant that or he just said it because it sounded good. But the truth is, most of the rules had rules like this. If a girl got pregnant by a different baby, different father, she got more money. But if she married the father or got pregnant by the same man, she didn't get as big a check. In other words, you're incentivizing making the men marginalized. Well, say if a lady has 4 kids by 4 different men, well, the men are all marginalized in the lives of the kids. That's a devilish thing to do to those young girls. And to bring a baby in the world with no committed father.
There's a doctor here in town told me, he said, he named however many employees, and he says only one of them is married to the man who's the father for children. The other ones call it getting a raise. They go, I need to get me a raise, so they get pregnant and have a kid so they can get more money.
Yeah, and it's bad for society, and obviously, well, it's a real devilish thing that the government has done, And well, I guess that's what happens when you have secular governments that don't like God and God's ways. And totalitarian governments want to replace the parent-child bond with the government bond. Um,
And they do it. They do it with Head Start programs, with kinder care programs, with everything they can to get that kid away from the family as young as possible.
Yeah, I was listening to some video or report where they want them as young as they can get them. They admitted this because of the brain development. The younger you get them, the more you can control the brain development, the structure of the brain at an early age. It becomes easier for you to get them to learn the way you want them to learn and have the the structure in their brain that will take the garbage they're feeding them.
you know, there was a study came out a number of years ago. They thought that children who were on Head Start for like 2 years, then when they went to first, second, and third grade, they have an academic advantage over kids whose parents may even not even put them in kindergarten, kept them at home with their parents until they were 6 or 7. Guess what? The kids who were kept at home with their parents did just as well, if not better, than the kids who were in Head Start. You can say, how is that possible if they've been teaching them for 2 years at 3 and 4 years old Head Start? But for some reason, being at home with mom and maybe sometimes dad longer was negated all the benefits that Head Start supposedly gave them. Isn't that a shocker?
No. No.
All that money, at least as far as academic progress, the government spent all that money and it has no academic benefits.
Shocking.
Who would have thought it? By the way, I might have mentioned this story in the past, but Fidel Castro, he was a revolutionary, and after he came to power, he admitted he was a communist. And so what he did in the public schools when he first got started, they would have the kids all close their eyes, put their hands over their eyes, put candy, and then they open their eyes, no candy. And then they do the same thing, pray to Fidel Castro, and they had guys out there who would put candy quickly on their desk, open their eyes, and there's candy. Castro, the communist leader, and to some extent the same thing is true of Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin. They actually call it Stalinism, the Stalinization of Russia. I'm not exactly saying religion totally died in those countries. The older people still hold on to it. It's not completely dead, and it made a comeback in Russia. But they tried to make the head of state their god.
China.
That's what they're going to be doing here.
China's rewritten the Bibles, and they have to be approved by the state before you can read them. So they've rewritten anything in there that they don't like has been taken out.
You mean if you buy a Bible in China, it's been worked over?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I watched a thing about that just 2 days ago, yesterday.
I know the Roman Catholic Church that's in China, their high-ranking archbishops and cardinals are chosen by the Communist Party or in coordination with the Chinese Party. Does that tell you something? And if you're not a government-approved church, they suppress you.
And that's what the left wants for us.
Government-approved churches, right? Who obey the government. The more you think about it, I made the statement we made a few weeks ago, mega churches will be easier to corrupt by Satan than a lot of little small churches.
They got a lot more to lose. They got a lot more cash to lose, so they're going to be easy to get to bend their knee to the government. The small churches like us, we got nothing.
And there are a lot of different little churches, maybe 10, 20, 30 members. And they got more or less the same Bible. It's going to be Yeah, I can see big mega churches approved by the government. I even got the feeling the governor of New Jersey, and he was talking about how he thought it was okay to shut down the churches. And he said, I talked to major church leaders and they all cooperated with me. I thought, yeah, I can believe that, can't you?
Yep. I should preface what I meant by we got nothing to lose. We don't have no financial to lose. But that's why we'll hold on because we know we got a lot more to lose spiritually and physically in the future. They don't see anything spiritual or physical to lose because all they're about is
Yeah. Some of those churches are pretty much nothing but good times, music, and different, organizations, and just a smattering of Bible in there just to give it legitimacy.
You guys know I've never been to a church. I was invited, it's been 10 years ago now, to go to this giant mega church over in Lakeland, do a memorial service for 9/11. And a friend of mine who was a ground zero first responder was going to be on the stage talking about what happened 9/11. So he asked me to go over. We went in there. There were girls walking around in shorts and high heels or cowboy boots and Daisy Dukes. And they completely dressed inappropriately. And they had a band, and I think the pastor read two scriptures. The local sheriff over there, Grady Judd, who's kind of famous at this point, he read four scriptures. And then they passed the plate, and then Tony got up and talked about what happened on 9/11. They had a bunch of other people do it, and then they played more music, and it was I've never seen. I didn't hear anything about the Word of God.
How was the band? Was it more like a rock band?
I think I remember they were pretty good, but I was just never been in a place like that. It was so strange for me.
I'm told some of the big churches I've heard have more than one band, a band for young people and I guess a more regular band, so you can get all kinds of music.
Well, they were more Alice Cooper than Metallica.
Okay. and I go to YouTube and I see weird stuff. And I ran across this guy a few times who's complaining about the music in many of the mega churches. I guess he's as he would describe himself, a good old Baptist. And he says the music they're playing in these churches is satanic. And it's kind of funny, and I don't even know all the music he's talking about, but I thought, wow, that's interesting. But he's probably right. A lot of the music is not that Christian and uplifting. It's more like rock, and other things, which I guess I'm not into all the modern music, so I don't understand all his complaints, but it's kind of interesting to hear him complain anyway.
When I go to my chiropractor's, he has this music playing. It's like Christian music, but sometimes, it'll be like they're rapping, and and I don't get it. But
I was watching on YouTube that mega church in Houston, and I was watching it because what's the black star that was in the White House? Had the red hat on and got a lot of publicity for it. Kanye West. Yeah. Kanye was going to introduce his album, and I wanted to hear his Christian album. It was a rap Christian album.
Have you ever
I guess I'm so out of it. The music was horrible. I couldn't understand the words. After about 45 seconds, I turned it off.
Have you heard him sing? Actually sing? I do better.
None of them people. None of them
rap.
They don't sing.
I didn't think it was good. His singing was bad. The harmony was bad. I didn't really understand the words. It was horrible. And I know you'll say, you're just old. You just don't understand it. But I'm some rap, I suppose, could be considered humorous and funny. But I just couldn't get into Christian rap. All I'm saying is the government would probably love to deal with churches like that would really put the Bible in the back shelf. And they want our kids to be looking to the government for everything. And I think they have much of the people, especially the poor people in big cities, have been influenced by a lot of these bad influences. And that's why, at least one of the reasons the behavior is so bad that you see on all these lootings and stuff. At least the government is responsible for some of it.
Years ago, the Hillsborough County Sheriff said people asked him why the crimes are so much more heinous than they used to be and the criminals are so much younger. And he says, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you that when I grew up, my parents told me that I may not catch you and the police may not catch you and the teachers and the principal and your daddy may not catch you. He's going to catch you. That's number one. Number two, we're 2 generations past the 10 Commandments in Sunday school and the Golden Rule. And he said, these kids are not taught any of that anymore. He said, I was afraid God was going to get me. So I was a pretty good kid. But they're not taught that anymore. And so when you're 2 generations past Sunday school, the 10 Commandments and the Golden Rule, this is what you get.
Yeah, that's true. And I think parents are anyway, I believe progressive socialists who don't believe in the 10 Commandments of the Bible want our kids to put their hope and trust in big government. By the way, there's a series of things on a book called Utopia. They go through all the utopian schemes of mostly communists but other groups and revolutionaries, and they always promise utopia. And it ends up maybe everybody is equal, but equally in dire poverty, except for the party leaders. That's where they're equal. Invariably, Cuba, East Germany, North Korea versus South Korea, Eastern Europe versus the Soviet Union, Western Europe versus Eastern Europe, Soviet Union versus America. In every case, big radical socialist government leads to disaster. But they want the people to believe. Don't you think a lot of young people come out of college now thinking big government will solve our problems?
Well, yeah, an awful lot of them do. You know what the problem, it seems to me, if you look at all the people in these that have been in power in socialist governments, even in the last 40, 50 years, they are not the best of society. They are not the smartest. They are not the hardest working. They don't excel at anything except for being lazy and manipulative. They have no skills. They have no marketable skills. The heads of the elites, they're like AOC and the rest of these people don't have enough sense, to know what. Well, I won't say it that anyway, but they're not too bright. Is what I'm saying. And that's how they get power and money and fame. Is they manipulate and they steal. They don't do it by hard work. They don't do it by their intelligence or their upbringing. They do it by theft and manipulation. And they have no redeeming.
I'm watching Fox News, and they handed a regular broom, like what your mom would have, to Abby Huntsman, and she thought it was a shovel. They tried to get it from her because she thought it was a shovel. She's pushing it on the ground and didn't know what it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
You do wonder. I've heard people say this. Maybe certain talk show people say, they say absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now the governors have emergency power, although technically after so many days it should run out, but they're keeping the COVID thing alive so they can keep using it. And that power goes to their head. Like your wonderful governor in Michigan.
Yeah, the wicked witches.
And they start doing stuff like, well, you can go to Walmart, you can buy this, but you can't buy that. You can't buy the other thing. I think, well, why you couldn't even cut your lawn? I'm thinking. Oh, well. But they would allow lottery tickets to be bought, liquor stores running, Abortion clinics open with no restrictions, and they're picking and choosing winners and losers. We pick Lowe's, and they'll probably give plenty of campaign money to us. You give too much power to people, and it's just goes to their heads. I worry about Dr. Fauci, that he's gotten too much power through the press and the press, of course, probably realizes that he's a big Hillary supporter, at least he used to be. Being liberal, the press loves him, and so now he goes on the press and reinforces scaring the public, like, oh no, COVID's going to get us. We better stay at home and keep our kids at home and lock the basement and hide.
Dr.
I don't know. Am I exaggerating?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are, because you called him big. I mean, he needs to stand on a box. I hope he finds out something bad about Hillary. We shouldn't have to deal with it anymore.
Oh, well, we're supposed to love our enemies, but I really see the media as like the propaganda arm. By the way, on all these totalitarian governments, they took total control of the media. And I saw signs of that in the previous administration. Any reporter that reported something they didn't like, they tried to, get at him. And like the press wouldn't let One American News Network's reporter in the press room. They voted him out. Well, I don't like that. I suppose that's how it's always been done in recent years in the press room, but you can see how if you get the press to propagandize and you get big government, it's a perfect storm for abuse of power, isn't it? And then you'll tell the kids, oh, whoever's the big wig on, the government, you have to really, they try to make him into a father-like substitute for God. And by the way, someday, when history is accurately written and people realize, the evidence is out there now, but a lot of people don't know it, the true history of Mao and Stalin, who killed 3 times more people than Hitler. And but the kids go to college and they know nothing about the evils of socialism. By the way, the Nazis were socialists too. National Socialist Party. Nobody, that's what Nazi stands for. Anyway, I know we're getting off the subject. Family values are the foundation of a strong nation and community. And we want to push back against this lack of honoring our forefathers. People like Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, Jackson, Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, they were great men, even if they weren't perfect. You look at all the things they accomplished and you'd say, wow, these guys are a lot more on the ball than we thought, And their critics really couldn't hold a candle to them in many respects. Also, I saw someone was discussing, he was saying people believe in the standards in which they grow up in. He said, if you had been born in the South, say it was 1840, you probably, not everybody in the South supported slavery, but most did. You would have supported slavery because it would, and if you didn't, you'd probably lose out on some high positions. So he asked his college students, he said, how many of you taken an unpopular position for moral reasons against the tide where you had something to lose? Raise your hand if you've done that. And then they realized, few had done that. You see what I mean? Those men were victims of their times. I'm not saying that's good or bad. That's just the way it was. But some few did stand up for certain things. And anyway, and they should be given credit for what they did do. Any rate, we're getting off the subject. But I'm saying we should honor our forefathers, even if you don't think they were true. And tearing down statues of these people is undermining the foundation on which the younger generation sits. They just don't know it. And it's an overly simplistic view of history taught by people that just don't really understand. I mean, just oversimplistic view of history. But go ahead, Dave.
I had nothing to say. I had unmuted my mic, and Sandy is making a lot of noise, so that's why it clicked on me. She must have been dreaming because she jumped up out of her sleep.
Well, I know we put a lot of people to sleep. I do understand that. I have a very soothing voice, right?
No.
You're not supposed to say that.
No, you got a great voice.
Anyway, almost, but when I read this in a book, I was shocked. I didn't know. Almost 2/3 of all European immigrants to the American colony from 1630 to 1776 came as indentured servants. They made that sacrifice so they could be part of the new world, be part of America. And, they worked for free, just food and room and board, on mostly farms and shops and little factories and plantations, and they helped make America great. As I said, they came as poor. A lot of them came because of the Irish potato famine and upheavals in Germany in 1648. Actually, I used to know all the stuff that happened in all those German states those years. I can't remember the details, but you can look it up. A bunch of things, and it made a lot of waves of immigrants came to America. Yeah, I know that's one, but that I don't think is the worst of it. There was the 30 Years' War that really was mostly in the German states and Europe. But whatever it was, a lot of things happened that drove a lot of people to America for both prosperity and freedom. And they worked hard to make this country what it is. And we need to respect it.
I had someone tell me the other day that when they came over here, they didn't come over and demand that we speak their language.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there were a lot of people who spoke German as their first language, I think, originally, or Irish as their first language, but they learned English. Mostly. Well, they're, for the most part, and that's a good thing.
I think it came easy for the Irish.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I'm also part Irish, so I can get away with saying this. The Irish suffered a lot more than most people appreciate. It's odd how people were in pecking orders, but when the Irish got here, they were just above Africans in the pecking order. And they weren't treated right. Now, this is way, way back, quite a while back. So you got to feel sorry for some of the Irish immigrants. They had to suffer a bit to carve out their place in America, too.
They had to suffer a lot. I've seen some pictures and things. It was really terrible.
There were signs in 1850 and 1860, Irish need not apply for jobs. I know it's hard to believe. In America, yes, in America. We won't go into all the reasons why. Maybe that's a whole nother set of story. And there was a lot of trouble. I mean, it all worked itself out. It took a while, but it worked itself out. But a lot of people did suffer. That's all I'm saying, to make this country what it is. And we need to honor our ancestors, even if they were poor and suffered.
No, they worked hard. My wife's father and mother, what they went through to come here and become citizens was very difficult. And then her dad, being born in Italy, came to America, joined the U.S. Army, and fought in Anzio, Italy, which is one of the bloodiest battles. Married her mother in Italy, and then he had to jump through hoops and hoops and hoops to get my wife's mother here to the States. Great Americans, and they told her, "You're not Italian American. You're American." You know, they were Italian Americans. They were born and raised in Italy, but you're an American American. That was their dream. And she doesn't speak Italian. She wishes she did, but and she does have a lot of her family. You know, she looks like her family and that kind of thing. She cooks like her family. That's why I'm fat. But what they went through to become citizens, I'm very impressed. And she has letters that her dad hand wrote, some in Italian, some in English, trying to get her mom over here. And it's amazing to read that stuff and to know the history of what he went through. And he wasn't the only one. So our immigrants are to be respected. They really are, unless they're robbing your house or something. If they do it the right way, I have a great deal of respect for those people. And
you know, Italians have the greatest cuisine, even greater than French cuisine.
I'm going to tell you right now, way to a man's heart through his stomach, my cholesterol's going through the ceiling. That's all I'm saying.
But Italians have the greatest cuisine. Some Southern food is very good too, but I won't get into that because you offend people. What do you mean you like? Anyway, let's go to Proverbs 4.
Hear, my children, the instruction of a father, and give attention to no understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Do not forsake my law. When I was my father's son, tender and the only one in the sight of my mother, he also taught me and said to me, let your heart retain my words, keep my commandments, and live.
And our parents can give us wisdom. They can keep us out of trouble. And I just think we need to appreciate it. Also, Proverbs 6:4. Do you have that one in there? Proverbs 6:4-5.
I got 4.
Yeah.
Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget, nor turn away from the words of my mouth.
You know, when you read Proverbs, the message is simple. Solomon and the other writers say, true discernment and wisdom are more valuable than money. And a good wife is also very valuable too, Dave. But and Ken, I'll just kidding. Just kidding.
You're gonna have to take that up with her.
Wisdom and discernment are very valuable. By the way, do you know that married men, we're generalizing, of course, retire with more wealth than single men, and they live longer than single men? And that's not necessarily true of single women. So it looks like men need women more than women need men. Is that weird or what?
There's a real good chance I'd be gone if it wasn't for her. You know, she takes care of me. I need a babysitter.
Well, anyway, but we do need to get wisdom from our parents because, you know, our parents help us achieve things and go places. And if we don't follow their wisdom, we're going into dangerous directions. And here's what I fear. If America goes to the far left, and by the way, do you know that Antifa is against the nuclear family? Okay. And their 3 leaders are all trained Marxists. Admittedly, I'm not, not that they're hiding it, they're admitting it. So, and they're going to be heavy in the Democratic Party. So that means fatherhood is, and maybe even to some extent motherhood is devalued. The nuclear family is not important. What is important is the community, the government, run by the party, of course. And it's scary because I believe that from what I've seen, the Democratic Party is a mean party. Not just like the communists. I'm saying they're not that bad. as they are in Cuba and all these other places in North Korea. But if you don't go along with what they want, they go after you. Now, and I don't mean just to persuade you. I mean they go after you. That ought to scare Americans. We could be facing really ungodly. And by the way, Black Lives Matter and Antifa are both big time secularists. They don't believe in God. Oh, and by the way, next week, before we get to prophecy, I want to mention next week we're going to look at Galatians 4:10. It's the main scripture people say why we shouldn't keep the holy days. We're going to start a discussion of the fall holy days. We'll probably talk about them more than once. And I believe, don't you think that Satan is trying to scare people from going to the Feast of Tabernacles? And trying to mess up the Feast of Tabernacles?
Yep, because you don't know what's going to happen. And we don't know if we're going to be able to even get in the state without a 14-day,
quarantine.
There we go. Without a 14-day quarantine, one way or the other,
I mean, is Florida really, the news media makes you think they're dying like flies in Florida. Is Florida really that bad off?
I was at the hospital or the big clinic today. Parking lot was 25% full. They have a big testing center all set up. There's not even anybody at the center to test anybody. It's just tents all down the road with nobody in them. They're down here in Florida got in some trouble because if you tested positive and you're asymptomatic, they had you come back in 3 or 4 days, test again, still asymptomatic, come back in 3 or 4 days, and they counted each one as a new one. So it turned out that they way up the numbers down here.
Oh, did you hear that they found 30 testing centers that gave 100% positives, which is impossible?
300 testing.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
300 testing centers had 100% positive results. And then when they started questioning them, one was like 74% positive, one was like 100%. Turns out the 74 was like, was it like 6% positive? The ones that were 100 were like 9% positive. It was way down. They were only sending the positives and they weren't sending the negatives, so they sounded like 100%. The administration has said no more reporting to the CDC. You report straight to the White House. We have a crew on this because the CDC was fudging the numbers and there's political activists in the CDC was skewing everything. So now hospitals have to report directly to the White House so the numbers don't get.
Right.
Also, I heard, though I will admit probably some places are worse than others, so I'd be careful not to over-exaggerate, but a lot of the press would say test cases are up and hospitals are getting crowded. It turns out the hospitals are getting crowded because they put off their normal medical procedures for 3 months and they just open back up. And like 80-some% of the hospital beds are used by non-COVID people. They don't give you that detail. The minority of the hospital beds are COVID sicknesses. We're not trying to make light of the people, especially the older people who are more vulnerable to get sick. But it's like political activists are fudging the numbers and the media screaming bloody murder. And they make me think you folks in Florida are about ready to croak.
Yeah, I've met one guy who got it, and he got it because he had a ton of underlying issues. I'm probably going to Sunday go up to Walmart and just start recording myself on my phone licking the buggies because I know I ain't getting sick.
Yeah. Okay. I have 2 uncles that had it. My uncles are in their 70s. They're in very poor health. One of them might weigh 100 pounds. They have heart conditions. They have breathing issues. They smoked all their lives. At least the one did. And they're a mess. They both got it. They both recovered from it.
And they're not in good health. They say if you're
Oh,
young
and
and
they didn't
healthy,
treat them. All they did was, here's the worst thing: this old folks' home. They're both in the same one. They locked them. They basically locked them in their room till it was over, till they were done with it. Wouldn't take them to the hospital. Wouldn't do anything for them. Just locked them up in their room. We found out about this after the fact, but they survived.
I've
they
got a
could have they
nurse.
could have died in there.
Well, they would go
Wow.
in every day and deal with them. They wouldn't let them out of their
Uh,
room.
yeah.
They wouldn't do anything as far as treating them. So, I mean, that's about as rotten as it gets. But they survive. That's the point. And they lie, they twist, they do everything they can. Like in Florida, like they said that they're doing it here in Ohio. That hospital visits are up, but like you said, it has nothing to do with COVID hospital visits. And they say they'll tell you that the what's where when you're in bad shape. The
Emergency
ICU is
room.
70% full. Yeah, but only 10% of those are COVID. The other 60% are regular patients that are in there for other things. They lie. I know a lot of people in the church don't like to think that or believe that, but these people are lying to us. They're
And,
intentionally twisting the facts, and they're.
I heard of one church make them hum the songs. I have an ENT nurse, ears, nose, and throat nurse, who takes your kid up to my class. And I said, "How many cases have you seen? Ear, nose, and throat, right? None,
wow.
not one."
And
I'm
what bothers me is a lot of times the media will say cases are up, hospitals are full. Both those things could be true, but one is because they're testing a lot more, and the other is because normal hospital stuff has been put off for 3 months in the past. But they don't give you those details, so when you hear it, you panic. Ugh! And people are frightened to death. And one more statement on our topic. I think it's very difficult to come to honor God if you haven't learned to honor your parents, your grandparents, and maybe to some extent your foreparents, the people from the past. We need to honor them too. And lack of doing that, like they're doing for the younger generation, is not good for them. They'll become undisciplined young brats, which is not a good thing to have. And the big foreign policy thing is, I hear this too. The current stock market recovery, because I think the S&P has been up 2 weeks in a row, and more or less most of them been up most of the last 5 weeks. So there's been some down. This is the most unliked economic recovery in history. In other words, a lot of people don't like the fact that the stock market is coming up. See, it's a predictor of how investors think the future is. Obviously, if Biden wins, everything's off. It's going to go downhill, great stock crash. But if Trump wins and things stay reasonably normal, I think the business people think next year will be a booming year. And a lot of people don't like that. They want doom and gloom, and they're mad at the stock market for doing okay. Is that weird or what? I heard that the other day.
Absolutely.
So we have to watch. The doom and gloomers want to discourage us because they figure that way they can slip Biden their big victory. And, also the other big thing going on in the world is Trump is trying to punish China for their misbehavior with COVID and cheating in trade and currency. No one, in other words, the gloves are off. China playing nice, not playing nice. The Chinese are pretty much, in a sense, as far as China and America is concerned, it's kind of a new Cold War. I don't know how that will end. I mean, I think the best ending would be for communism to collapse in China like it did in Russia. But the problem with it collapsing is if a regime is super brutal, they can stay in power for a long time when they shouldn't. And I've seen that like in North Korea. The way those people have suffered. But if you read about the brutality they've had for the last 50 years in North Korea, you can understand how they managed to stay in power. Now, I don't know if China is in that position to do that. It'll be interesting to watch the next 6, 7, or 8 months. But wouldn't it be nice? There's this guy who's on Fox News called Gordon Chang. He wrote the book, The Coming Collapse of Communist China. Wouldn't it be something if he were right? Well, by the way, if you all want to go to there's a place that can watch all the old Line Upon Lines, right, Ken?
Oh, yeah. You can either go to lulicg.org and there's a link up there called episodes. You just click on that and all the past stuff is there. Or you can go to YouTube and go to our Line Upon Line 2810 channel. And if everybody would, and then subscribe, I'd like to get our subscriptions up there. But recently our viewership is up quite a bit. So more people are watching, probably about almost twice as many, maybe a third as many more. So we're getting more reach out there lately. I don't know if that's because of the times we're living in, but it'd be nice to see it get up even more. You know, a kid burping up his Cheerios will get 10 million views around the world in like 30 seconds. You know, somebody putting out good information, you're struggling to get a handful in comparison. But we'll take all the people we can get to tune in. So
truth is not popular, right?
Truth is not popular. Cheerios out your nose, way popular.
But tune in next week because Galatians 4:10, most commentaries will say that proves the holy days have been done away. Actually, it does not, but tune in and we'll discuss it.
Good. That sounds good. And the holy days are not that far off. I know it seems that way, but they sneak up real quick on you.
And I hope America will open up so we can have a feast in Florida and California. They're worried about the feast in California, too.
That's, if any of them doesn't happen, that would probably be the one that would have trouble with. I'm still looking towards Myrtle Beach, but if that doesn't pan out, who knows?
Well, you all take care and God bless you. And to all the people watching, we hope to see you next week.
All right. Sounds good. And hope everyone may the rest of your Sabbath be restful. And we'll see you back here again next week.
Good night.
We're happy you could make it, so glad you are here, and hope that we've been able to make God's word more clear. Until next time, may God be with you in everything you try. But for now, till next week, we've got to say goodbye.